Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin, and today is an episode of Cosmic Conspiracy with our very special guests, Michael Lee Hill and Glenn Bogue. And let's see what I want to say. A brief thing about Michael and Glenn. Michael Lee Hill is an award-winning musician, filmographer, and UFO experiencer. In his home state of Ohio, Michael has been cataloging video after video of UFOs over Lake Erie. What makes these different than most sightings is that the phenomena consist almost entirely of pulsating orbs of light characteristics. Unusual lights are seen changing colors, converging and separating over the lake. And stories of this unexplained phenomenon date back over 150 years to the indigenous North American Indian tribes. And also, Michael has met personally with Marduk, and he has worked with A.R. Borden of the Link. We're going to be talking about all those things, plus the news that Michael's bringing to the table. And Glenn Bogue he's just my friend and a major researcher in ancient aliens, and especially the Anunnaki. And Glenn's been traveling most of the summer. We missed having him on the show, and he's coming back today, and we're so glad he's here. Let me get back to the board. So let me turn it on here and welcome Michael, and welcome. Let me first, Glenn. Haven't heard from you. Hi, Glenn. Are you there?
I am here, Janet.
Hi, welcome back. I hope you had a great summer.
I have.
Okay, we're going to get your update on what's going on here. And let me just say hi to Michael, too. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how you doing?
We're doing great. We're over here in Maui, and the weather's perfect, and we're feeling sorry for the mainland. They're going to start getting snow and all that cold crap, and we'll be over here in the sun.
Yeah,
and the
rub
sun.
it in. Rub it in. I wish I was on Hawaii with you, believe me.
Well, come on over for a visit. When it gets cold and rainy, just come over here. We'll do a conference.
Right on.
We'll make something happen here. So, Dr. Lessin, would you like to say anything about today's show?
It's become apparent to me that our makers, our immediate makers, the Anunnaki, intended us to suppress, to do better than, to surpass them, to do way better than live in the violence and strife and ever jealousy, competitive hierarchy and put down of women that they engaged in. We've reached a critical mass where we are doing that, and especially I want you to listen to Michael, because he is immersed in whatever his archetype or spirit is, and when he talks, it just feels like our maker, Enki, who wanted us to surpass them, talks through Michael. So I want to hear whatever you've got to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm curious.
Bless you.
Time in the show, I want you to say what makes you think that we were designed to surpass the Anunnaki.
Okay.
Okay, but we don't have to do it right now. We'll just bookmark that. So, and I don't think Glenn is aware because he's new. Can you tell Glenn a little bit about how you got involved with the Anunnaki? I know you did these lights over Erie, Lake Erie. They are somehow connected, but if you can kind of summarize.
Sure. What had happened was I started witnessing and filming these orbs of light over Lake Erie. And that led to the point where some of my footage went viral and ended up being on the History Channel. And that was for the UFO Hunters show, and it was episode Alien Contact. And what had happened was they had just interviewed another contactee. His name was Terrell Copeland. And they found out, even though they thought it was interesting because he had filmed the exact same kind of UFOs I had, these orbs of light, had the same story of contact, and the same message was given to him, and but he was discharged from the military because the military doctors found out that he had this unknown blood anomaly. So unbeknownst to me, the History Channel thought, boy, wouldn't it be weird if these two guys ended up with this same unknown blood anomaly? And so they flew us both to Boston Didn't tell me, though, that what they were doing, actually. They just said, are you available to do a follow-up? We got some more questions. And when I got there, that's when I found out that they had this medical testing set up. The conclusion was that I had the same blood anomaly, which it's pretty in-depth to get into, but it just ends up in the blood being more oxygenated because there's a higher level of an enzyme called creatine kinase that our brains are releasing in these massive amounts. And the Harvard doctor said, well, he couldn't really figure out what would cause that. He said the only thing he could surmise would be some type of unknown virus that was tricking the brain into releasing massive amounts of creatine kinase. So that was in 2008. That led to the summer of 2008. I was approached by beings who introduced themselves to me as the Anunnaki. And at this time, I didn't know what the Anunnaki even was. I had never read a Sitchin book or anything like this. So that's how my first meeting happened. And they just pretty much told me they wanted to talk to me about what this blood anomaly truly was about. And it's progressed so far right now that in reality, I'm just about to reveal who the Nephilim are to the world. And I'm really excited about it.
Wow. And Glenn is very knowledgeable about health and has been doing a lot of research. Do you have any comments on what Michael just said about his blood anomaly?
No real comments other than that it's typical of the medical establishment in the United States, particularly the National Institute of Health, to blame almost anything that's an anomaly on a virus because virologists run the NIH. And so I'm working now with a researcher in L.A. who was involved in a book about 12 years ago. They did not publish it, but the scientist that she was working with, the medical doctor she worked with, was claiming that a virus and a bacteria and a fungus are all the same entity. It's the same organism inside our bodies, and they will mutate according to what is going on in our mind. So I'm very interested in what Michael's saying about this being present in his mind because it is actually a manifestation of how he is thinking. The interesting part about this person's book in L.A. that was not yet published was that their internet website was taken down for inappropriate content. And I'm unaware of who can do this, but it must be somebody pretty high up who would do that. So there's something in Michael's background that is allowing his brain to manifest this substance that's there. He's doing it first, and it's the actual appearance of his wiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what the Anunnaki told me was this all goes back to the whole time period of the flood and Enki pretty much going against his own kind to help mankind out, and went to his mother's side, the elders, and it's a much more complex story than what has been presented for the most part. And not only did it deal with creation of the Ark as we know it, or the symbology of it, but it also had to deal with the implementation of an experiment for humanity to experience its own mental energy in an accelerated rate to help us evolve at a faster rate, because Inky's mother's side had asked Inky, even if we save this race, are they going to evolve to the point needed for this shift of the ages at the end of this grand cycle? And by all accounts, the answer was no, because we were brought into Eden, even in the Sumerian, telling of the word. And because of that, there wasn't much growth happening. So there had to be a bloodline for them. Pretty much they said, you can't do that to an upcoming consciousness, this experiment, without going through it yourself and becoming human. And that's why the Nephilim was created, so Inky's side could incarnate into the human form. And pretty much when they first tried it with the first human vessel, they just spontaneously combust. So they needed to create a vessel that had more cellular energy or chi or life force available so they could even incarnate. And that's what the creatine kinase is doing by bringing more oxygen in, you see. It's all kind of intertwined.
What is the source of that information? Is that something we're told, or is it channeled, or what is the source of that information?
Some of it is just, the creatine kinase I found out through the Harvard doctor. We talked a lot about it off the camera and everything, and I found out what it truly does. Then I even got more of an education on what that is all about from A.R. Borden's group of people. And the person that I probably learned most of this from is another gentleman that we haven't got into much, but so all kinds of sources, actually, and the Anunnaki themselves, which I would like to talk to you guys about this, because I can tell you when they met me, they said, we're going to remove some of his memory blocks. I've been thinking about that recently. I'm like, how the hell would that manifest in one's life?
So what does that mean? They're going to remove your...
That means you're remembering, you are remembering stuff right now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of strange because it does seem like this to me, and we can get into this, because I'm finding out the relationship of the Nephilim to the mound builders and that whole subject.
Yes,
so
yes.
And boy, it's blowing my mind because...
So, the big question for me is when Marduk was sent in exile, and he said, I'm going to the land of the horned beasts, and we thought he meant buffalo. Did he already meet the mound builders, or were they, or did he create them? How did he fit into what was happening in North America?
Well, what I found out, and this blows my mind, is I was just made aware that Edgar Cayce actually done a ton of readings on who the mound builders were, and that information had been collected into collections and made into a book. So I picked up that book, and it's pretty much blowing my mind because I'm not even given any energy to what Atlantis is or was, but according to him, the mound builders are the remnants of the Atlanteans, or he called them the Poseidians, which obviously those are Inkyites, right?
Yeah.
So he said that when Atlantis fell, and he said it wasn't just one time period. He said the first catastrophe happened 50,700 years ago, and some of them went off to other places on the planet, and a second catastrophe happened about 28,000 years ago. Then the final one was 10,600 years ago. Casey said that the remnants from the 10,600 years ago event came up and, first of all, mingled into the Mayan people until they pretty much started cutting people's heads off and doing sacrifices. And they're like, hey, man, these people are not getting it. And went up, north through the interior of the United States. So guess where I found out was their very first establishment on this planet?
Ohio.
The exact same place, right here, my hometown, honest to God.
What's the name of the hometown, Michael?
East Lake, Ohio. And
Ohio.
This has been my hometown. This is where I've filmed all these objects. This is where A.R. Borden told me the oldest underground base in the world is right here. They told me that, there's ley lines like in other countries, like they know about them. There's electromagnetic lines of energy that crisscross the planet. Wherever those nodes cross, there's going to be vortexes. And NSA people told me, they go, Michael, you're like sitting right on top of a vortex there. And their own words were, we don't even know how you can live there. I thought that was funny, but I was thinking, because I had heard that this was a very special area, but I was thinking, well, where's the evidence? Where's the pyramid, because in western Ohio, we got the Serpent Mound and we got the Newark Earthworks, which are both mind-blowing in complexity. Well, I just found out because I had heard growing up there was a mound up around the hill and there was a monument to it. So for the first time in my life, I stopped and I looked at the monument. I wrote down the name of the Indian culture and I went home and started to do some research. Here I find out it was the biggest, most complex building structures in America. There was walls that surrounded this complex that were 665 feet long, and pyramids that were huge in the middle of this thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think it's almost like, well, if we because obviously someone didn't want this history released to humanity, so they couldn't be allowed to stand, so they bulldozed it down, But what I can tell you is I've found out now there's a local museum that has the artifacts from that, and I'm going this week to take a look at the artifacts. So I'm really excited about all this because, as you know, I'm speaking at the Star Knowledge Conference coming up with all the Indian elders. So I'm really going to pick their brains now about what they know about the mound builders,
Well,
yeah, well, what's really interesting is just to just become one with each of those artifacts and just see what story it evokes in you.
Right on. I'm really excited to go and see what's there.
And when is the Star Knowledge Conference, Michael?
That is starts September 18th, and see, this gets into all of this because when I met the Anunnaki and they told me I was of the Nephilim bloodline, I had not met my biological mother, and I didn't know at that time that I was of Indian heritage. It wasn't until I contacted my biological mother, I found out that my great-grandfather on her side is pure-blood Seneca Indian of the Iroquois tribe. Well, what you find out from Edgar Cayce again is he said that the Atlanteans became the mound builders, which kind of mingled into the Iroquois tribe of Indians. Now, again, I'm Seneca, so all the pieces are fitting. Where this gets really important is in 1997, scientists found a brand new DNA lineage that had never been discovered before. That's not too long ago, and it's called haplogroup X. And what they found is the only place haplogroup X is on this planet kind of is going to make us rewrite our history books, because we've been told all of the people that came to the Americas came through an Asian migration, and haplogroup X didn't, and it's just in DNA evidence now. The only place that you can find haplogroup X, first of all, is everywhere that Cayce said that the Atlanteans went to, you'll find haplogroup X. It's in the skeletal remains that have been removed out of these mounds. 3% of the Iroquois Indian people still to this day, which ties in with my own blood, and ancient Israel. I don't even understand the ramifications of it, but it's truly one of the lost tribes of Israel is being revealed. And I don't even know how, I heard it's big.
Wow. Glenn, you've been traveling. What did you discover in your journeys? You've been doing research while you've been traveling.
Well, before I get to that, I have a few more comments to make about what Michael's revealing here.
Okay,
I don't know his work at all. I'm right now in Toronto, so I'm not too far from Michael. But ancient Israel, the original name of Jerusalem was Ariel, and Ariel means that she will come dressed as a bride. So I'm not surprised that this ancient bloodline is there, because Enki had planned for a long time to marry Ninmah at Jerusalem. The name got changed, I guess around the time of Melchizedek, about 1800 BC, or 2000 BC. But that's a critical piece of information that Michael's given me there, that's been prepared for a long time to have that bloodline, that forbidden marriage, because the Black Madonna Ninmah was, of course, forbidden to be married, since she and Leal had a child out of wedlock. And so this has been through thousands of years preparing that site, and Leal was sending his messengers there to disrupt the nuptials. Both Abraham and Moses, when I write in my books, were sent there to foul things up. But Enki stayed in there to eventually, he became both the father of King David, whose name is Jesse, and Sitchin does write about him as Nahash, the serpent. It's his nickname. And then he married the daughter of David and became King Solomon. And Solomon writes about marrying the one he loved since his childhood, which I argue is back on Nibiru. But critical to what Michael's saying is that the line of David was the one designed by Enki. He appeared as his father, and David's line is not Jewish. It was taken into Germany and hooked up with the Sicambrian Franks, another lineage through the maternal line that Enki had prepared in Germany, and that's the line that becomes the Merovingian kings, who, of course, were wiped out in about 800 A.D. So the things that Michael is remembering or coming to him in his work in East Lake are quite historical and are quite accurate from somebody who really just said he's not versed in this field of Anunnaki or Sumerian research.
No, I'll tell you, it's in 2008, the middle of it. I had no clue. You know, I've got a crash course. That's the first thing that happened when A.R. Borden. I guess we should kind of hit on that. You know, there's factions of our government that are already working in technology transfer programs with different extraterrestrials. Well, this gentleman, A.R. Borden, is the head of those groups, and they're like the Men Who Stare at Goats movie. You know, the remote viewers, people that are looking into extended human function. You know, they call it LERM, light encoded reality matrix, which is just manifesting something from nothing, as they say, light into physical matter. But that's a whole other subject. He's told me a lot about this area as well, but the first thing that they did was supply me with a library of Zecharia Sitchin books and said, you got some catching up to do. So I've got a crash course on the subject now, I must say.
Who is giving the books, Michael? Who's giving you this information?
They are, I guess, best known as the Labyrinth Group. It's the highest echelon of the NSA, who is, according to him, in 1954, when Eisenhower met with 3 different races of extraterrestrials, the Anunnaki were one of them, and that is backed up by Bob Dean, who is really respected. He's from the military, high-ranking. I think he was part of NATO. But they said, we're not coming down, we're not going to invade, but we want to help you get through this phase and get the free energy, but you got to get away from your nuclear power ambitions. And we weren't ready to do that, I guess. And AR said that they also wanted to install what our government looked at as an Anunnaki kingdom, which, you know, they were going to take over, which our government wasn't real cool with. But at the same time, they said, whatever you do, don't partner with the Greys because, you know, you won't like the outcome of that. And I guess that's just what we did, you know, because the Greys said, you can keep your nuclear power. We don't care, you know. But AR told me that, because I said, what's it going to take to get another offer on the table? Obviously, what we've done in Fukushima, you know, we could use a little help. And he said, what makes you think we didn't start working with them behind the scenes in 54, you know, just because it didn't go public that, you know, we're working with them right now. And he said, where do you think this technology, like, you know, he brought up LERM, and the other one is electrical neurosensing, which is technology-assisted remote viewing. It's not our technology, too, so that sounds pretty mind-blowing. I can tell you, it's the ability to remote view, and when you get there, not only remote view it, but bring in a new avatar so you can now operate in that new location. Mm-hmm. I think people are not even ready for the level of technology of what the Anunnaki are. You know, no one really talks about what it's like to meet a multidimensional being.
What is it like?
And how did you know it was Marduk? How did you know it was Marduk?
Well, the first thing that happened was I was met by another guy, and his name was Loki, and he brought me into this location where this gentleman was, and I was told that this was the king of the Anunnaki. And that first night, just so you know, no name was given. The only name that I got from any of them was Loki. This gentleman, I was told, was from a really high-ranking position within NASA, and he had a woman with him that was the same. She was from NASA. What let me know that they weren't from here is they became faceless right in front of me. And I actually commented, I said, can I see your faces? And he said, no, you'll have to wait till tomorrow to see our true faces. I thought that was pretty strange, you know.
Were they hooded?
Yeah, well, in there I couldn't even see. What it was picture you're in a round kind of gazebo tent structure, and it's lit by candlelight in there. And I could see everything up until their necks, but right when you got to their necks, it's like their faces were covered in a shadow that however they move, somehow it seemed like that shadow tracked their face. And what I've heard, I can't even talk.
Subsequently.
We'll help you out. Keep going.
That word. Is that they can become faceless. That because of this extra chi that they have in their body, they can't shapeshift, but they can send a transmission into your own neural network to make you perceive whatever they want you to perceive, to understand you're not dealing with a normal human. And
critical. Go ahead.
His way of doing that with me is to become faceless. And I heard Ra actually means the hidden one. I think it's probably his calling card, is because he's done it many times to me now, and it always freaks me out, as you can imagine. But
you had more encounter with him, you're saying?
Yeah, the second time it wasn't through the same human vessel, though. I know it sounds strange, but this gentleman, I've known him for years, and we were in his hot tub, and his wife had gotten out, my girlfriend had gotten out, and just me and him was left, and the conversation got really just enlightened, really. And I said, you're not from around here, half jokingly, and he said, Michael, look at my face and tell me what you see. And when I looked, he looked just like the person in New York. He looked faceless. And I said, you look just like the person I met in New York. And he said, bingo, nice to talk to you again. Well, at this point, I was really frightened. And I said, who are you? And he said, I'm the muse. I inspire creativity, wit, and humor in the human race. And he said, would you like to see something that I've inspired? And I said, absolutely. So we got up out of the hot tub and went to walk in the house, and I did look, and his face was there, so I was happy. We get in to the house, and he puts on this movie, and I think sometimes they do these kind of things, so if you try to explain it, you sound really insane. But he put on a movie called Bat Thumb, and it was anyone can go to YouTube and just type in Bat Thumb, and you'll see what movie I'm talking about. It's this crazy director who recreated all these famous movies like Star Wars and Batman and Godfather, but he did them all with thumbs, with faces superimposed over their thumbs. So in the Batman movie, Bat Thumb is going up against his arch nemesis, and this thumb just had a hood on his thumb, and all of a sudden he pulls it off, and it's no face, and it's just a thumb with no face. And I never told him that I knew who he was because he became faceless. Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. In the hot tub, he asked me, Michael, look at my face and tell me what you see. All I said was, you look like the person I met in New York. I didn't tell him it was because that person was faceless. So for him to go and show me a movie that he said he inspired, in the arch nemesis in the movie was called No Face, and he just looked at me with this grin on his face. And I got it instantly, That's what it's like to come in contact with these beings. It's nothing like you'll think a normal, I guess it can be anything. It can be someone standing in front of you talking, but it can also come through synchronicity.
What's he want from you? What does he want from you, Michael?
I don't know. In both cases, these weren't, well, the first one here's an interesting thing. Before I let them, AR said there's a lot better ways for someone to tell what you know and don't know than a lie detector test. If you let them, they have technology. They can go right through your pineal gland and into your Akashic records and see every life you've ever lived and everything you've ever done and will do. And that's what happened. And, up until that point, it was an adversarial meeting with them. There was a lot of death threats coming out. He was in his bad cop role, big time.
Against you, Michael? Death threats against you?
Oh, against me. Because he said, this gentleman, being David Cerrito, which I partnered with him, and he said, do you know anything about this gentleman that was just on Coast to Coast with Art Bell and was talking about a senior scientist from Lockheed Martin? And I said, yeah, I know everything about it. That's my movie. Me and David partnered on it. And he said, well, you've caused a lot of problems for people behind the scenes. I work for a group of people who decides what gets released to the public, and this was never on the list. How the hell did this happen? And I told them, well, I manifested it. I think it's bullshit. This has been withheld from humanity, and I made it my priority to get this done, and I did. That movie is my baby, So that changed the manner of the meeting, and that's when he said, we need to know what you know, and they brought out that device, and I could feel it stimulate my pineal gland. It felt good, It's probably releasing a little DMT because that's where it comes from, and it, and all of a sudden, the whole meeting changed when he said, oh my God, we've been waiting for you to show up, and we've been wanting to have a meeting, and now it can finally happen that you're here if it's okay with you. And I was thinking, boy, this is a different change of tone. You know what I mean? This guy was just threatening me before, and I said, well, what do you want to talk about? And he said that there would be an object visible in the sky soon, and that it wouldn't be questionable, and people would look at it and go, well, hey, isn't this what this Zachariah Sitchin guy said? He said that, I remember, and I had never read a book or anything. But he said it would lead to the directly to the Anunnaki then in extraterrestrial life, and they said, we want all of your opinions on what do you think the effect will be on Earth's religions and economic systems and governmental systems. And so we just went around the room, and I thought, I even told them I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I love talking about the extraterrestrial subject, and so, yeah, I'll talk about it. And the end result of that, they said that they were all in agreement that they believe that mankind has earned the right to be treated as equals, and that they would begin preparing humanity for that reality. He said, obviously, before 2012, and I do take that as Ancient Aliens it's a good start, I'm talking about the TV series, the History Channel. That started in 2009, so I think that was a very good beginning of this. But, to be honest with all of you, these people from the NSA, I've been in meetings with them now, and they said, how do you think this would be unfolded best with the least ripples? And I said, reveal the reality of this intelligence in humanity's past first. Then it's not in their face, and it's not like you're being invaded. And it won't bring in that fear mechanism, and let people know that we've never been alone, and then we can bring it into the future now through what we're talking about with the mound builders and who they really truly were, and the relationship to the Anunnaki, because it's all there in the history books. So all the pieces are going to come together.
What faction of the Anunnaki were the mound builders, or were they? Who were the mound builders, in your opinion?
I don't know. I know. See, there's different factions. The Iroquois Indians, first of all, are made up of 5 different tribes. And those 5 tribes did not get along at all and were bitter enemies for a very long history in time in our recent history. It wasn't until very recently that I don't want to call him a character because this is the actual Iroquois, like how they became a confederacy was they were visited by a holy Indian from a whole other tribe from the Canada side, and he was called the Peacemaker, and he was known amongst his own people as a holy person, even since a very young age. So he crosses the lake, and in the story, it was a magical white canoe, and he meets one of the warriors who had previously, which was unheard of, he united all 4 tribes because this 5th tribe was led by a dark sorcerer, and they were all afraid of this guy. And so this warrior had united all 5 tribes. They went and they got their asses kicked. And not only that, when they went back to their tribes, all of their family and children had been slaughtered because it's horrible. But that in history, that's when some of the Americans, once the warriors left, then to break their will, the American settlers that were trying to take the land and whatnot went in and slaughtered their children. So when they returned, they were really heartbroken. Well, this warrior goes to the shores of Lake Erie, and there he's met by the peacemaker. And somehow the peacemaker puts his life back together for him, and he understands love for the first time. And with the peacemaker, then the warrior and the peacemaker go back to these 4 tribes and actually unite them again, which was really hard the second time, and they all went back to this sorcerer, but this time they didn't go with arrows in their hand. They went with the olive branch, you see, and the sorcerer was powerless against them, and the sorcerer knelt down before them, and they took all the snakes out of his hair, and from that point forward, he worked for the light, and he worked for all 5 tribes. That's how the story of the Iroquois Indian tribe being united, that's the actual true story. So first of all, who's the peacemaker, right?
Yes.
But in the story...
I'm listening to the story with fascination because I've been saying in my book 5, which is not out yet, that Toronto, the name means the meeting place by the waters, and that the Great Library of Alexandria will be built here on the shores of Toronto. It was predicted, back at the time of 391 AD when the library went down. But I'm unaware of a being in Canada that has been here in the history books that would match what Michael's saying.
Glenn, who comes out of the water? Glenn, who comes out of the water all the time?
Well, Enki.
Right.
That's why I'm saying it's here. But Michael hasn't said so far that he came across the water in the white canoe. If he came across the water or out of Lake Erie, that's kind of his pattern throughout many of the ancient civilizations.
Yeah, that's what Enki does. He comes out of the water, across the water.
Yes, it's the white
and when
canoe
he came
is the
across,
key in the story.
The Indian said he was in a magical stone white canoe, which is interesting. Like, why would it be floating? But the interesting thing is, the back of our dollar bill, people don't truly understand that eagle that's holding the arrows and it's holding the olive branch. That's the story of the Iroquois Indians and their unification. And you find out that the Seneca of the Iroquois are the only tribe that still owns their land in Upper New York, and they still own Salamanca, which is the only city, that's where Niagara Falls is. It's the only city not owned by the United States. It's still owned by the Seneca. So to me, somewhere along the line, and you find out, it's coming out that the Templars were here in Ohio and Pennsylvania in the past, and that show Unearthing America has hit on that pretty well. They were here because they knew exactly who the mound builders were. They came with them. And this gets into, you were talking about Enki and Jesus and whatnot. I had the chance to talk to, what's his name, Nicholas Haywood, who, do you guys know who he is?
No, who's Nicholas Haywood?
Are you familiar with a pretty recent movie called Bloodline? It's all about the Da Vinci Code stuff, and the bloodline of Jesus and Mary. Well, in that movie, Nicholas Haywood, for the first time, the Priory of Sion, which is the most secretive part of the Templars, came forward, and through Facebook, he and I started talking, and he confirmed for me. First of all, I asked him, is this bloodline we're talking about between Jesus and Mary, is it the Nephilim bloodline? And he confirmed that. And then I said, because in the Bible it says it was the Elohim, and the word Anunnaki is not brought up. And I specifically asked him then, we are talking about the Anunnaki, correct? That this bloodline ties back to the Anunnaki. And he said, yes, that's exactly right. So I'm just throwing that in for some information.
So, Michael, stop there, please, because I saw a video this week by a fellow named Bashar. It's a voice of an extraterrestrial or extraterrestrial group. It speaks through Daryl Anka. And I don't know his work that well, but Bashar was specifically asked the question: the God of Moses, was that the Anunnaki? That is the Elohim in the Bible. Was that the Anunnaki? And Bashar said yes, emphatically. So you're confirming things from a source that I have heard this past week. I don't think you follow Bashar, but
no.
There it is again.
But I've heard some of his stuff, but no, I don't follow it.
Yes, you've also said about a sign being visible in the sky. And the woman who appeared at Fatima, I'm proposing, is Ninmah, who appeared, who's known as Isis in Egypt, and she's known as the Mary the Magdalene. That's not her name. That's a Greek royal title. And when she appeared at Fatima in 1917, she predicted the course of 20th century European history, including the two world wars and communism. But she appeared again in Garabandal in 1963. And there, that's where the same message was given. There will be a sign, a permanent sign, a visible sign put in the sky. And then she said there'll be 3 more popes. One will reign for a short period, and that was John Paul I. And then my pope will come, which was John Paul II. So I don't think you follow Fatima. I don't think you follow Garabandal. I do very closely for reasons that Janet and Sasha know. But you can't know those things, and here you're being told that by these beings that you've met.
You know what the strangest thing is? I found out, because I asked them what I needed to do to get through the 2012 shift, and the answer that they gave me, and this is in 2008, I just found out it's pretty much identical to how Enki told his son, not Noah, what was his name in Sumerian?
Ningi.
Zazutra. It was almost word for word. Loki told me, if you put yourself into a room and close the blinds and do whatever you need to block out any light from inside, if you can see any light coming in, you've failed. And that we'll be able to put a holographic bubble around you and you'll be all right. And I thought, wow, that's the craziest shit I've ever heard. And but then I found out when Enki told Zazutra, he said, you know, it needs to be able to be tumbled over in the water, and if you're inside and you can see any light coming in, then you failed. All of a sudden it hit me. This is the same. I asked him how to get through the 2012 shift. It was Enki telling his son how to make it through that shift, you know, the last deluge. And all of a sudden it hit me. He's not, even though it might be somewhat tied in physically, he's talking about your mind and fear. You know, he said if you peek out the blinds and engage what's going on in the outside world, he said you'll see things that'll make anyone go insane. That you need to keep your ship sealed up tight. And I thought it was very strange when I learned it was, you know, the exact same story given thousands of years ago in a clay tablet.
But you're also quoting from a lecture I heard in Philadelphia from somebody who follows Fatima very closely. He was a close friend of our family's father, and he's saying the same thing. There'll be 3 days of darkness. Shut yourself in the room. Don't go outside. Same thing. And this
interesting.
Is very
I don't think it's been translated properly. I think this is more of a metaphor of understanding that mental energy creates your physical experience, and that thoughts have an electromagnetic reality, and energy can't be created or destroyed. It needs to be transmuted. Well, how do you transmute a negative thought form? It comes up in your own personal life for you to choose love, you know, and then it'll be forever from that point forward transmuted into its higher frequency. Then the sky's the limit. I guess you could go lower too, but I don't think that's what we're going for.
So what happened, according to A.R. Borden, who was representative of the Linkage Institute? You sent me the minutes of a meeting, which you haven't given me the right to publish yet, but I'd like to. But
you can. A.R. told me himself that the time for secrecy was over, so I've opened the floodgates, you know.
So I can go ahead and publish that then.
You can publish anything that you want to publish that I've released. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so what he was saying in this, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but basically that they took and they shifted us to another timeline during 12/21/12 to get us out of harm's way. Before, the meetings were from 2011, and they weren't sure what to do, so they were going to try this experiment. So apparently it happened. A.R. Borden died of March of 2013. Has anybody, do you have access to, or do you have any idea what was said in the meeting of it was 2012, I think? 2013. We're missing one of the meetings.
Well, what had happened was the meetings from 2011, if you know what, I can put this chronology together for you because I think it's kind of important. In 2012, in the summer of 2012, they had given us, it's called the Study of End Times Prophecy or something, and this e-booklet was translated into more than 20 languages, and they just asked us to put it out throughout our networks, and it's one of my highest read documents I've ever put up on my Scribd account. What that was almost putting what those notes were into a nutshell about what they knew was coming, which one was Nibiru and the other one was this wave of energy, galactic super wave, I think they called it. And I can give you that too, and because it's all tied together. But at the end of that booklet from 2008 is when it gets into some things that could be done, and it was mental contact with the incoming and asking for their help. And that's what we did, and it was successful, and I guess it cost him his life, and it really pisses me off. He was my friend.
Who killed him?
Well, what had happened was, after the conclusion of this project, which was 3 weeks in length, and it was every single day we had specific procedures. I can share all this with everybody. But after the 3 weeks, the last time I talked to AR during this was, because after this was the interview, by the way, because I asked him in that interview with him if he wanted to get into what we did, and he said he couldn't at that time, if you recall from the radio interview I did with him. I never heard this kind of horror in his voice. He said, you'd think that it was a good thing that we just helped humanity out big time, but he said these sick, I'm not going to go there. These people who are in charge right now had a depopulation agenda. They truly wanted billions of us to die so they could come up out of their underground bases and have their utopia and not have to worry about unleashing unlimited energy and us misusing it and whatnot. And what we did was throw a big monkey wrench. We took the whole planet into a different timeline and didn't, with the help of the Anunnaki, didn't allow those prophesied earth changes to happen at the end of 2012. People think that 2012 was this huge non-event. They have no clue what kind of work was being done behind the scenes. I can share with you, too, right after this project is when Hurricane Katrina hit. And there's also an earthquake on the other side, which was Charlotte. But at the same time, they put the same team to work on, obviously you guys know that weather can be manipulated.
Right.
And so it can be manipulated for the better, too. And we took, with the assistance of the Anunnaki, if you remember, those storms lost all their intensity whatsoever. I can tell you I was part of a team that was making that happen. And all of this pissed off the elite.
Wait, slow down, Michael. Are you suggesting that Katrina was created in order to slam the New Orleans area harder, and that you guys downgraded?
I'm talking about. It's not Katrina. I'm talking about
Sandy.
Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, that was coming into the New York.
Yeah, Sandy.
Yeah, it was being steered right into New York because if all those subways would have flooded in it, it would have been a catastrophe that's unthinkable.
Well, there's a meteorologist has a YouTube, and she shows you the satellite view of Sandy, and they usually follow, as everybody knows, the Gulf Stream over toward England. And all of a sudden, Sandy made a left-hand turn and went westward, right into that area of New York City, and then south into New Jersey. I was just there last week, where the damage was horrendous at Bay Head, New Jersey. So
it could have been off the charts.
And you guys downgraded that storm.
I have my tasking instructions and everything. Pretty much, it just had all the weather maps of all the data of where those storms were headed and the projections. Because when we sent these packets of information to the incoming, for instance, we gave them a solution to Nibiru coming through the solar system. As, well, here's what we've come up with. What actually ended up happening was not that whatsoever. They chose a whole nother route, and so similarly, it's like you just give them what data you're trying to do and what you're trying to, the intent, and miracles can happen, and they did.
Give whom? Whom, Michael?
The incoming, the Nibiru, is who we. This team that was put together, we, like I said, this guy trained all the government remote viewers and the Men Who Stare at Ghosts program. So we went through these procedures to actually learn how to meet each other on a non-physical platform and be able to recognize each other's energetic signatures. And once that could happen, then we contacted with the planet, and they made sure there was a handshake, they called it, you know. And so what had happened was, with Nibiru coming through, the end result was that they were going to... You're familiar with the Philadelphia experiment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I live in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, imagine if you did that around the whole planet, you know? Like, just like the ship, if you take it out of the space-time continuum and into the ether, even if it's for a split millisecond, when it popped back in our timeline, it was in 1988. Similarly, they thought, well, in AR's own words, he said, how about if we get the hell out of Dodge and take Dodge with us and create a huge field around the entire planet that would take the whole planet, only for a millisecond of our time, split millisecond, out of this timeline. And they said they knew it would pop back in at 2036. And they were worried about it. Actually, they said it's never been tried. That, you know, they didn't know how time would start back up in their own words. And
so are we still in an alternative timeline?
That's what I've lost access to AR. You know what I mean? I know, right. You know what I know now. Because I was wondering the same thing, because in the Philadelphia experiment, it does snap back into the normal timeline.
But it came back with very advanced technologies from 1988. I'm told I read where that was the start of RCA, that they had the technology from 1988 back in 1943.
Wow.
So there is a kind of effect from that Back to the Future movie with Michael J. Fox that you can you go back and stop your parents from marrying or your dad being bullied or whatever the point of that story was. But what's the effect of going forward and then coming back on that 40-year stretch? And that's what you're describing here, from 2012 to 2036. What's the effect of going forward to 2036, which is closer to when Sitchin said that Nibiru was coming through, and coming backwards to 2012 with a different reality and a different outcome?
I can tell you, I think that's what's happened.
Well, you're repeating what the woman who appeared at Fatima was saying, that you humans have forgotten what one person can do. And also what Enki said when he was Jesus, and that's in my theory that he was Jesus, that this much that I have done, you will do and more. Yeah, right? I don't understand how people misinterpret that. He didn't put himself on a pedestal. He's like, you guys are going to do greater things than I'm even doing.
Right.
I think that's beautiful.
But now you're into doubling of the spirit that Sasha spoke about at the start of the show, that when Elijah went up under the spacecraft, or was taken up is the term, that his right-hand man, Elisha, asked for his cloak and twice the gifts that Elijah had, and he gave them to him, and it's called the doubling of the spirit. And so when the master teaches the student so well that the student goes past the master, it's the master who's rewarded. And then goes on doubling again. So this is why Enki is here, to teach and teach and teach, because in the end, he will be, it's not why he's doing it, but that's just a law of whatever universe they're running in. That when you do these things, then if he teaches A.R. Borden or teaches you these things, and you do them so well that you have just done something that's never been done before, then the master has taught the student quite well, hasn't he?
Yeah, and there's a critical part of our population now that really understands the empathetic connection among all beings and all humans, and it's enough that the enlightened people of this planet no longer will tolerate the degradation of women or the handicapped or any human soul. And there's enough of us that have happened to this that we have superseded our makers.
Right. There's critical mass, so we're gone beyond that.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, but the whole 100th monkey, which a lot of people know, what that is.
Right.
They put it at 7%, at the threshold that needed to be crossed before new information would spread throughout the whole mass consciousness. The A.R. Borden's people told me it's only 3%. So
right.
In all reality, it doesn't take many of us resonating at a new frequency that's more love-based before those thought forms spread throughout the whole mass consciousness. So
now, why couldn't A.R. Borden save himself? When you say the time for secrecy is over, it can't be stopped now, you're not afraid, but what then would have happened to him? Would he have begun to doubt what he was doing? Or
I
fear
think,
would enter his mind?
Personally, he worked for... the best way I heard A.R. Borden, the people he worked for, he went against his own kind of like Inky did. And what he did with this team was not in alignment with the people he was working for. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, clearly.
Him putting a team of Nephilim, we were all bloodliners, and I'm still in contact with most of them. That wasn't in accordance with what the people he was working for was trying to accomplish, I can tell you that. That's what got him killed. I don't think, personally maybe he had contracts that he had signed and they uphold in certain levels that, I don't know. I don't know.
Has he contacted you since he crossed over?
Yes, one time in a dream. It was a very lucid dream, and actually one time after that too. Now, just recently, but in this first one, he had already passed over, and we met on that platform I was telling you about that we learned, and he walked up to me and he said, "How about them apples?" That was his favorite line. He was a comedian, and I thought, well, that was funny. That is how AR talked, The second one was, and that was all. I don't remember anything after that, but not too long ago, I don't even know where it was, but it was like a meeting, and there was like a young A.R. Borden there, but it didn't seem like he recognized. It's almost like I time traveled earlier into a meeting that A.R. Borden, young A.R. Borden, was at, and he had no clue who I was, but I was sitting next to him. So that's the two times I've...
Wow, he was telling you when to buy Apple stock. You missed it.
Yeah, the Apple 6. I missed it again.
You missed it again. Hey, have you been contacted by any members of that group? You've been invited to join it. I'm talking about the A.R. Borden group. That
Janet wants in.
I want to miss it.
Well,
no, I'm always getting contact, and it's kind of, it's not real clear, but I'm getting a lot of contact, and Sasha helped me interpret it. But what's been going on for you? How do you know that you're this bloodline? What's going to happen with this? Because we still have a crazy planet. We survived the
First of all, let me tell you, you're already a part of it. You are a part of it right now, because the whole idea of the Linkage Institute, if you recall, was to bring a larger portion of humanity to the table. Yes. And, obviously we're just talking about how important 3% is. So the goal was to bring 3% of humanity that's resonating on higher frequencies of love, and it's apparent, and actually with certain technology it's verifiable, That 3% is what we're trying to do, and numbers mean everything. And so the fact that we're on the radio right now, because the Linkage Institute, with the meetings and everything, it culminated into the most action that was ever done by the Linkage Institute was the A.R. Borden project that we just spoke about. To save humanity, really. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, in my mind right now, because none of us really speak about any of it anymore, it's you guys are in contact with most of them now, if I'm not mistaken, through the the group that I got you, friended into, the Writing of A.R. Borden. They're very, very good, enlightened people. So you asked me what's going to happen with this?
Yes.
It's going to be revealed in a big way. Like I said, I was very shocked when recently I met Chief Golden Light Eagle. He's the chief of the Sioux Indian Nation, and he's been on the History Channel talking about, how Indian cultures have had contact with extraterrestrial beings for a very long time. And he invited me to come and speak at the Star Knowledge Conference, which is with all these different Indian elders from different tribes, and all of them speaking about what they've learned from our star visitors. And that's a 4-day event. It starts September 18th. But you can imagine, like I said, middle of 2008, I didn't know what an Anunnaki was, and I didn't know that I had any Indian heritage. So this is pretty bizarre to me, and actually like a blessing come true, because not too long ago I was wondering, man, it would be great to learn what, now that I know that I have Indian heritage, what they know, that they don't let out to everyone else down through their generation. So I think it's very great that I'm going to be able to talk to them.
Wow, the knowledge of your roots. Yes, that's wonderful. That's the dimension that's missing, yes.
Yeah, and he's a really cool guy too. He fits the word jolly. You know what I mean? He's just jolly.
Have you ever done past life regression therapy?
No, I was regressed. I did a show for Spike TV in 2012 during all this, actually, and that was one of the ramifications, by the way. I filmed 6 months of my life for Spike TV, let them pretty much torture me. They regressed me by a professional hypnotist, and it ended up with me having traumatic stress syndrome for months afterward. And when I got to New York, the chief of police was waiting with a polygraph, and I passed the polygraph with flying colors. But when all this went down and AR said, we pissed off the wrong people, that they truly wanted a depopulation agenda. And he said, Michael, you need to keep your wits and awareness about you, because you specifically are being targeted by those same people that met you in New York. They haven't forgotten who you are. And that's a whole other side note, but I was wondering when that was going to go down, and it went down recently. And it almost tore my world apart from the inside. It was because of my not following AR's advice, but that's a whole other story. How
did the New York police know about your regression results? How would they know?
Oh, it had nothing to do with the results. When I got there, Spike TV had just hired him just independently to do a polygraph test that they would film for the TV show. It just so happened that when I got there, it was me being regressed, and then them asking me questions as I was under hypnosis, and they were looking at the answers to that as well as them just administering a normal lie detector test.
So who are you?
So, what's that?
Who were you? Who are you?
It didn't go to. It was. They went back to an abduction experience, which I've only had one that I would put into a negative category, and I don't even put it in negative. I think, even if you woke up during surgery that you had gave your permission for, and it was for your own benefit, you don't want to wake up in the middle of it, and that's all that happened. And I was like, wow, I'm awake. Please stop doing what you're doing. And there was a being that was standing to my right, and he said, oh my God, we didn't know you were awake or aware. You'll feel no more pain. And he put his hand over my forehead, and then I lost consciousness. And but I can talk about it all day long, but under hypnosis, when I was took back there, like in first person, you know what I mean? And I kept fighting him mentally. I did not want to relive it, but he was very good at what he did. And when he broke through, it was like one of those scenes out of The Fourth Kind. They could hardly hold me down because what they were doing was unbelievably painful to me. And the guy was so good, I was reliving it.
Emotionally, psychically, spiritually?
Everything. It was like I was there. And then,
Where?
you know what, though? The gift, I was there being worked on, and, like, what was happening was
so
wires. What's that?
What? You were
being wired?
Yeah. There was wires that were going up in between my legs, really thin wires like a guitar wire, and I could feel them working their way up into my body. And there was more than a couple. And, this was a really weird time for me because I don't talk about this much because I don't want to scare the hell out of people too, So I was wondering, man, is this really how I want to introduce myself to the world? So I'm kind of glad that they've not allowed the Spike TV show to be aired, but it has to be talked about, right? The abduction part of this because it's happening, and but I just wasn't real sure that's what I wanted to do. But
did you have any side effects from that?
So it hurt,
experience?
but their intention was not that you feel the pain, and when they realized you were in pain, they alleviated it. That's what you're saying. They were considerate of you.
Yes. But that's the only negative experience like that, and that's what they did in this show, and the only regression I had. One other time I was hypnotized, and I went back further into past life stuff, and it was interesting because I did say in this, and this was a while ago, that I ended up, one of them was as a monk, and I remember I was like a scribe as a Tibetan monk, and that's really interesting to me, by the way, because guess who I just got a notice that's following me on Twitter?
Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama. You can't make that stuff up.
You can't beat that. The Dalai Lama.
Yeah, I thought I might have to start thinking about what I post.
But Michael, you're not nearly as far back as you can go. I have a person I've met here in the past. Janet was talking about my work this summer, and particularly in early August. And I met a gal here in Toronto who woke up in 2011 in her kitchen, and she had these powers. And if you would like me to find out who you really are from Nibiru or back there, I believe she can do it.
I'd like to talk to her. I already know. Well.
Who are you?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Enki, because Enki isn't a name; it's a title. And even they are, he was saying the question is who have the Anunnaki labeled as the Enki, because just like the Dalai Lama, Enki is a title, Lord of the Earth, and then Enlil, Lord of the Sky, and from Anunnaki it was Ea. But has there been other Enkis since Ea? I believe there has been.
What makes you say that?
I think that group of Anunnaki has been, that's why the Nephilim was created. They've been incarnating into human lifetimes over and over and over for a very long time on this planet and trying to guide it from the inside. A lot of that bloodline, too, it's sad what, they get kind of caught up into the secret societies who are not operating on higher levels of consciousness. And
Michael, has it ever been explained to you in a different way that the Anunnaki lived for a very long time, but when Dumuzi died, the proposed groom of Inanna, he was killed or chased over a waterfall until he died, and then he came back and reincarnated, and at that moment, the Anunnaki looked at each other and said, "Oh my God, we will come back as the slaves of the slave race that we created. That's their destiny." And there's nothing voluntary about helping people.
Karma. That's too cool. I love it.
So who did Dumuzi come back as?
Well, that's the question I had for you when I first met you. It's proposed to me that it's Michael Tellinger.
Yeah, right.
As a subsequent incarnation, but he'd have an earlier, like Michael said, he was a monk, different things he's been before this. But this is why these people can recognize very well these rock monuments and know how to ring them in South Africa. They recognize them right away because they're part of the group that helped create them.
Interesting. That's where all my study is leading right now, is frequency and its relationship to physical matter. By the way, I got to share this. You know what semantics is?
Yes.
The study of vibration. I hired this company I'm a musician, so I made sure my guitars were tuned to 432, and I sent them a 20-second file of me playing my A note, and I got a response back. They said they didn't know, they've never imaged an electric guitar through a tube amplifier, and they said they've never seen the kind of geometry that came out of this, and it is pretty amazing. But what's the guy's name? Hang on one sec. Nassim Harriman.
Yes, Nassim. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he just shared my photo of my guitar note and some information on 432. I was like very honored because I'm a big fan of his work.
Right.
But
Is this because you strum it? Is that why? Is that?
Yeah. Music is very important to me. I'm. Man, I don't want to toot my own horn, but that's really, if I've done anything with my life, it's music. I won a nationwide guitar contest by Steve Vai. I don't know if you ever heard of Steve Vai, but he's a Grammy award-winning musician. And so it's interesting because of all of this. In the documentary that I partnered with David Sarita on, I got some people that I've met through my music, and like Joe Satriani, and got him to talk about his views on extraterrestrials, and Steve Vai did a cameo. But music is such a huge part of this, as far as even how they're saying to train people to create physical objects from light, that certain frequencies in certain combinations are needed. And Pythagoras knew all about this too. But music is so important, and I think it's systematic that it's been kind of cut out of school systems and stuff, because it just rewires people's brains for both hemispheres to work simultaneously, where nothing else really does that other than deep meditation. But music is very important, and it's very important that it's tuned properly, because if people have seen this, it's the most beautiful sacred geometry created by nothing but frequency. But if I would have changed that to 440 instead of 432, it would just look like ripples in a pond. And the point of that is our whole musical standard right now is in A equals 440. That's the concert pitch that for standardized. And word is that came from Nazi Germany in the 40s. So it's not long ago. And it's very important, because think about all the music we're sending out through the airwaves, and people through their headphones with their iPods, and, and it's all just confusing frequency that isn't natural at all.
Now, what's your sense? Do you do any work in the Stargate? Because I noticed that 432 added together equals 9, and 9 is the number of
all the sacred numbers of that number sequence. They all equal 9. It's interesting because, put it this way, 432, to get its lower octave or higher octave, you just double that number. So, like if you have a hertz of a note that's at 27, if you went to an octave, it'd be 54. Go to the octave, it's 108. If you go to its octave, it's 216, and its octave is 432. Every single one of those numbers equals 9.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it gets even crazier than that. But
get crazy.
At 440,
get crazy.
None of it. Yeah.
But do you associate 9 with the Stargate?
I don't. I have been guided, even through Hendrix. He said that he's got a song of 6 was 9, and I've been brought to the knowledge that 6 is man and 9 is completion or God, if you want to call it that. I don't have an aha reflex on the 9 thing.
6 is male and 9 is female.
Well, I know they need to be balanced, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would like to learn more about it, to be honest with you. So if you could put some information my way, I'd greatly appreciate it. There's certain beds of this. I'm learning right along with everyone else. I know Tesla said that as well, that if people understood the significance of 3, 6, and 9, it would unlock the, For me, being a musician, it all deals with Pythagorean tuning, which is the A being the center point of the whole chart has to be at 432 hertz. And like 432 squared is the speed of light. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah.
It just goes on and so forth, 432. And so when you see an image created from nothing but a 432 signal, and it said it has all 5 platonic solids and the golden mean and the Fibonacci spiral is all in one photograph that's being held into shape by nothing but frequency. I think it's super important for us to start understanding these things and how it relates to music, right?
Right.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
The Gregorian chants were it's a different. I can't remember the name of the tones that they used in the Gregorian chants, but they're the original ones.
Yeah,
that's 528
probably is super. Because what you find out is, say if it's in 432, and then you go only halfway up to the octave, which is the 5th, you're still going to have perfect geometry if you're tuned to 432. If it's in 440, you'll not get any geometry anywhere you go, whether it's the 3rd or the 5th or whatever. So I think that a lot of these, like I'll give you an example. The Tibetan monks, they make the Tibetan singing bowls where you take a mallet and you run it around the outer rim and it makes the bowl.
I'm working with them here in Toronto.
Oh, right on. Well, the crown chakra ones, the smaller ones, are all tuned to 432 perfectly. You could take an electronic tuner and go up to it. So what did they know, Because it is tuned to 432. Matter of fact, I heard in the past there was people who it was their job to make sure people's instruments were tuned properly because they knew the chaos it could create if they weren't.
Yes, on the singing bowls, I'll tell you a story. I was here in Toronto, and I met a gal through a network marketing company I was working with, and we hit it off right away. I went to her place the next night, and she pulled out this blanket with something alive in it. And I didn't know why she had it in this blanket. I couldn't see its head or feet, and I could feel it moving. And she put it in my lap, and she had this bowl going around, around my head. And when I opened it up, I realized, well, it's like a hard back on it, so it must be a turtle because I could feel it pulling its feet up underneath itself in my lap. And Michael, when I opened up the blanket completely, it was a black, like an igneous rock, jet black and smooth. So how would I think this was a dog or a turtle or something alive in that rock? And then she said to me, Glenn, I put it out in the front porch in August, and it never gets warm. Well, this thing's heating up in my lap as she's playing that bowl. And we ended up concluding that this could have been a rock that was from Atlantis, and it's what you hit the ring of Stonehenge, when Stonehenge was complete as a structure, you hit this rock against it, and the frequency that's in this rock was the tuning fork. And it would ring that, and whatever message came through, I don't know if Michael Tellinger's ever done that in South Africa. But,
yes, he did it with his stones. He actually has those ringing stones, too.
Yes.
I'd like to know what frequencies they're ringing on. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out, I think it's fantastic with the singing bowl as well. I think that there's way more technology that we're going to discover that is frequency-based, like we're talking about. And I think that could very well be that within certain fields and frequencies that certain technology could become activated. And they say the highest level of technology is something that looks totally like nature, right? So I don't doubt that for one bit. I'll tell you a couple really simple things for tuning bowls, especially, all of them are going to be tuned to very harmonious frequencies if they're actual Tibetan singing bowls. But put a little water in the bottom of one and get it to sing, and then just drink the water.
There you go.
Simple, stupid things, but it's infused with that 432 frequency, and water is more conscious than any of us have ever dared to think, Also, like you said, around the head, I've taken my bowl and put it right on someone's third eye on their forehead and get the bowl to sing a 432 frequency right into your pineal gland. Or like my fiance, she messed up her knee, so I put it right on her knee and got the bowl to sing, and it helped out tremendously. So I think there's a lot of things that we can learn. It's our imagination on how to incorporate these things too,
What about 528 hertz tone. It's known to be by the ancients a healing frequency, and Marco Rodin and Dr. Horowitz are doing some research on the healing tone of 528 hertz. And it's being the oil polluted water in the Gulf of Mexico.
Very well could. Yeah, you know, 528, I'd like to see where that's at on a chart. I know it's a C that's vibrating at 528 hertz. But I don't know if, like, the chart with 432, I wonder if that's where it puts the C. I'm going to have to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all fascinating, you know, and the fact that this counting system was given to us by the Anunnaki back in Sumerian times. They've been trying to point us to this direction of these frequencies for a very long time.
So there are frequencies, what they're suggesting is that they can clean up the water if we have the right frequency. It'll clear it up of the pollution. It will heal the waters.
Yeah,
so,
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with essential oils out of Young's Oils called Thieves, and I saw it here in Toronto a month ago, clean up black mold under staircase just with a little brief shot every 15 minutes in the middle of the room, and the black mold is gone within about 2 days. With about half of a bottle. And what's explained to me is that it's changing the frequency of the black mold. That's why it's disappearing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not killing it, it's disappearing. It's changing its frequency.
Glenn, can you say that again, please? I'm writing it down.
This is Gary Young's Oils in Utah. They have a product out called Thieves. Thieves. Like a thief in the night. Thieves.
Thieves.
And it was so named because when the bubonic plague was manifesting itself in Europe, this group of bandits was beating the king's men to the riches and the dead bodies. And these guys, you know, it was like Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. Who are these guys that the bubonic plague doesn't bother them? They were covering themselves in these 5 essential oils from Egypt. And so the bacteria couldn't affect them. So now Gary Young's done the research to develop this product called Thieves. And I saw this thing, you know, change the frequency of this black mold. When I went back 2 days later, it was gone from under the stairs.
Would it work with the outbreak of the bubonic plague that's happening now?
Wow.
Yeah, yes, because it's what I said at the start of the show. This lawyer friend of mine, associate, and she's quite well known. I can't name her name because she is quite well known in a different field. But she did this work 12 years ago with a doctor whose website was taken off the internet for inappropriate content. And in that, when I read through it, it was Gustav Enderlin in Germany started that work. And it was saying that it's the virus or the bacteria or a fungus is just the same organism. It's neutral inside of our body and quite beneficial until you get into a negative mode of fear or anxiety or whatever else, addictions, and then it begins to take its different forms. But that's not its highest form. Those are lower forms of the same organism, which manifest as a virus. So when you bring out the Ebola from Africa into, you know, Atlanta, well, then all the Americans are going crazy, you know, fearful that this is going to, you know, no known cure. That's ridiculous because the man who discovered HIV from Pasteur Institute of Paris, Luc Montagnier, said no virus can harm the human body, provided the immune system is nourished properly. Mm-hmm. I mean, which goes back to diet and your state of mind, which we're a long way from that in the U.S. So I prefer Michael's approach of a different mindset that even just one person can begin to put this out there on the airwaves and begin to vibrate a different thought through humanity.
Deepak Chopra just opened my mind very long ago. I remember in the mid '90s on, you know, how much the mind affects our health, and that, you know, all the cells in your body are listening to your internal dialogue. And I'm a huge fan of that whole subject.
When you talk about stress, I mean, the great story from Hans Selye, who was the original Canadian doctor who did the work in McGill University, I guess back in the 60s. And what he did, Mike, is he put mice to test stress on the mice. He put them in a fridge. It wasn't too cold, but cold enough it was stressing their adrenal system. And they ran around as if they were, trying to get warm the first day, all over the place, like nutcases. On day 2, he opened the fridge, and the mice were moving at normal speed, doing normal activities, although the temperature hadn't changed. They had normalized. What happened to the mice on the 3rd day? They were all dead. Because they used a lifetime worth of adrenaline, they'd used it in just the 72-hour period that they were in that fridge. So that's how bad stress can affect the human body. The adrenal glands are firing at all times.
Woo! Interesting. You know, I've been thinking about a Tibetan principle, and it was just stop thinking. You know, we as Americans are thinking way too much, and that brings stress. You know, our minds only take, what they say, 27 snapshots of reality, and things that put us out of that 27 frames per second bring stress. You know, things that are going on, we don't know what's going on. Stress is
well, they had a movie. They had a movie for children in Japan in the movie theaters. And in order to keep a child's attention or an audience's attention, you have to keep increasing the violence or the flashes of light. And they went so fast in this little cartoon they had that I think it knocked out 70 children's brains just shut off during the show in the theaters. Yeah, and the children just passed out because they couldn't take any more flashes.
Yeah, I've had enough. That's funny. Yeah, I heard that's how a lot of, like, they know for programming, you know, light sequences and whatnot that can put people into altered states. And I'm sure there's people that have really looked into that. I think it's used in media all the time. I think both sides can use it, though, you know. It's I see a lot of good, the right information, I think, you know, that resonates right with me, and it is through some movies and music. And I think that these same avenues of trying to affect people can be used by either team, you know.
Well, it's also interesting there when you mentioned movies. I see in my notes that you went back to the Bat Thumb YouTube.
Yeah.
And I had gone to New York after I had this image given to me in Toronto of this woman of the tree, the woman of the DNA from the Garden of Eden. And I was taken by the psychic from Philadelphia to New York for the special weekend and these psychic fair. And it was kind of like normal people running around this place. It was in the Yacht Harbor Basin in Manhattan, and it was the main exhibit center, so normal people were there. But there's this group of monks trotted out, and there were about a dozen of them or so, or 15 of them. They had no pupils in their eyes. They had like stars in their eyes and the wildest monk costumes, but they knew a lot of my private research, and I was asking them who taught this. It was some man in Mount Shasta, California, they said. But they said, watch the movie houses. The world's mind is being altered, you know, by video in a much faster way than reading can do in the movie houses. And now you've confirmed tonight, again, this is about the 6th point you've confirmed from my work, that this person who did the Bat Thumb YouTube, they had the ability to inspire the Hollywood writers, the screenwriters, to present things in a certain way that helps along their agenda, good or for bad.
Absolutely.
These monks were quite good. They were quite good. What's that?
Multidimensionally. You know what I mean? These beings are not from our space-time continuum, which means they could pop in and do something when you're 5 years old, and then to them, step back out and step back in and you're 30. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're dealing with an intelligence that is multidimensional. We all are. We're heading there, all of us, but they're just in 9th grade and we're in 7th, you know?
Yes. Back to the facelessness of was that Marduk who was faceless?
Yes.
Now
he's confirmed that for me, that he is Marduk.
Would this explain why Enki could appear in different periods of time, but of history, but would appear with a different visage, different face structure, and yet call himself the same thing? Because I'm following his epithets: the King of Righteousness, the Son of Man, the Son of God, the Prince of Peace. He comes out of the waters constantly all over history in the original civilizations. A white man with a beard. It's all the same story, but he changed his name because the languages got changed. He kept the similar epithets, but you're explaining why his face could change its structure based on this extra chi that they had.
That's what I was told by AR, is that's one use that they can do with their higher cellular capacitance is, make you see what, let me tell you this, to get into my Lake Erie UFO footage, and then you can see how this all corresponds. When my stuff started going viral, I was contacted by Bigelow Aerospace. And do you know who Bigelow is?
I've heard the name.
Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. They bought that in the 80s. And Robert Bigelow is a multi-billionaire who started an aerospace company, and they make high-tech space modules for space stations. And they're the only company that actually has the permission by the United States government to weaponize space, which is interesting. But I was contacted by one of his investigators, and they look into new propulsion systems for the powers that be. And he said, Michael, we know that what you're in contact with over Lake Erie is the real deal because it's what we've been studying over the Utah Skinwalker Ranch. But the interesting thing is that the Skinwalker Ranch, these orbs of light were called skinwalkers because the indigenous Indians of that area had seen these orbs of light come down and take on biological life forms, whether it be giant wolves or giant deer or pretty much anything physical. And they said that what really freaked out the scientists, because Bigelow bought this ranch where all this phenomenon was happening and put in the best equipment money could buy, the best scientists in the world, and they lived there 24/7. So he said that they would have to bring in bags of groceries, and they would unpack all the bags of groceries into the refrigerator and the cupboards, go into the next room and say, I forgot my drink. Turn around, and when they walk back into the kitchen, all the groceries were back in the bags. So it was like this intelligence is just like messing with them, letting them know that it's there. Simultaneously, this Bigelow investigator points me towards some documents in the UK Ministry of Defense that were just recently declassified. And this documentation, which I can share with all you guys as well, it said that the real deal is these orbs of light and that they can divide and come together in ways that we don't even know of, but it said exceptionally that 3 of these orbs of light can come together in a triangular formation and make one solid craft den that, for all intents and purposes, is one single craft that reflects radar and starlight as it goes over. And so what I'm pointing at is this is the UK Ministry of Defense and Bigelow Aerospace. This is not my own opinions that I'm putting out here. Both. The end conclusion is you're dealing with an intelligence that can become anything physical, from technological to biological life forms. So when someone says, what's it like to meet them, I'm here to tell you it can come in any way imaginable. But they do, like, obviously, if it gets too weird, like one of them that came to me, he said, Michael, do you know, I only take this form so we can have this conversation. So I just wanted to put forth. That
correlates with Errol the Grey that was captured at Roswell during the Roswell crash in '47. She said that the form she was taking on was there just to communicate with the humans that were there. That they're not really gray in form; it's just one of their forms, and she's trillions of years old, has millions of lifetimes, and can assume any form. And I think that's where we are at the highest level, that we can just decide we're going to look a certain way or not look a certain way, or be energy, or be solid. And that's what Thoth said in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that he had discovered how to change his molecular structure, and that was the only thing that was holding in his shape and form was that his mind had created it.
But would this also be why Jesus says, I am the light? Is that the medium of travel?
I think that's exactly what's happened, because truly what is an orb, these multidimensional orbs, I think that they're, from what I understand, it's when you properly learn to spin your energy field, some people call them your aura or whatever, in a very specific way, it ignites into like a miniature sun. You're sitting inside of a ball of light, literally. And I've been told, well, what happens when you're sitting in a ball of light? Light is truly the only thing that you get to go anywhere in the universe, pretty much wherever you want to go, free card.
Right.
Thought, you're inside your energy bubble, and you think, I want to go here, and then you go there. And what I was told then, say 3 of these people come together that are each creating their own field of, they've ignited their Merkaba fields around each of their bodies. 3 of those people can come together and in another process create a larger sphere of light around them, because they said a personal energy field it'll end 3 feet above your head and 3 feet below your feet. So you're looking at, 10 to 12 foot sphere of light, depending on the height of one of our individuals. But when 3 of them come together, because of the bigger sacred geometry, they get like a 50-foot sphere of light. But it's so all light.
That's so right on. From my experiences in polyamory, I can tell you that's right on.
Create an energy field. Well, we were experimenting with Tantra and polyamory for the first 10 to 15 years of our relationship, because it just seemed, anyway, that's where we were.
But you definitely, and so when you multiply that and whole groups meditate together, or especially in sacred places like, things like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and places where you basically had people praying together, hitting those notes that made a big dome. And what Chris Harding says is that all these sacred places keep getting reinforced, and they're on the nexuses. Like Jerusalem is one, and so forth. You can just look at the map of where the ley lines of the earth are.
I was having a lengthy conversation with Peter Mound a while back, years ago. We were talking about how the Satanists have their rituals on these ley lines at certain times, and they do in groups. They have their ovens, and they have 12 or 13 or secret numbers. So basically, they've done these rituals for thousands of years. That's how they've hijacked this reality. And he was in the Tantra, and we started talking about Tantra. I said, what if we had 12 goddesses with their heads all together in the center, and they were all, people, but they were all in an orgasmic state. Meditating on, a positive timeline, because we take that reality. And he said, absolutely. So on August 12th of each year, we discussed it. It's ley lines of the planet every 20 years come together at the line. That's August 12th, 1943, and it's the Philadelphia experiment. So he said, ideally, you could get in like the 20-year mark, 43, 83, 2003. We missed it, 2013, and we can take back the timeline. But he said, even though it's not optimal, where it's in perfect alignment, is that the rituals can be done on August 12th of each year, with the intention of pulling us into the positive timeline. And theoretically, we haven't tested yet, because people are so afraid of their sexuality and doing it in groups. And that's part of what the Illuminati, in their perverted matrix, they have made group sexuality bad. They call it orgies, but actually that's how the core energy gets down these country peoples, and that's what Mound was doing, and that's what the Anunnaki were doing, and that's how they would connect with Source beyond God. God was God, but they would get all the way to God's Source, oneness and universal consciousness through these rituals. Comments, feedback. Still got you to lose everybody?
Janet, is she breaking up for anyone else?
Yes.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, you're breaking up so bad I can't even understand you.
You didn't understand what I said. Okay, well, that was part of why it wasn't supposed to be a minute.
It's still happening, I hate to tell you.
Describe the Yoni circle again.
Well, it's still happening.
Now it's gone.
Now you're good. Sasha corrected it.
Perfect.
Sasha's frequency, his sacred frequency corrected it.
Right on.
Sasha, tell them about the Yoni circles.
Okay, well, you have the women lie on their backs in a heightened state, and their favorite partner is with them, pleasuring them, while all of them, after you've meditated and opened all the chakras, and you're meditating on world peace or transcending our separate self-senses and factoring an energy into the net with the purpose of acceptance of all opposites and underlying oneness of all, with appropriate meditation, and so that everybody is of course, men bring the energy up their spines by a way, which is when you inhale, you raise each spine bone one at a time, and then you hook your chin down and you pull your spine bone down one bone at a time until all the air is out, and then you pull your belly in and up, and you tighten your base chakra, and you pulse your base chakra and send energy out your head and out your mouth and out your hands and your tongue, which are pleasuring the woman that you're with while she goes into higher states. It's deliberately perhaps saying, I want to contact Nimma, or I wish to give high five to the creator of all, or whatever. Janet could probably describe it much more being a woman.
Yeah, so, and also during this ritual, and the women start having marital orgasms, which is, Glenn and I have talked about this sacred substance that comes from women that connects everybody in the room to this higher level of consciousness, and they all become awakened and conscious. And so that's the theory of how we can create unity consciousness, especially if we do it in groups on sacred. There might be many more than one, of course, but the one I was talking about with Peter Moon was August 12th of each year. And that's the Philadelphia experiment was done August 12th, 1943. I know it's a big theory, but it's... But
is August the end of the dog days, Janet?
Hey, and if it doesn't work, it's still fun to try anyhow.
Yeah, that sounds like a great experiment.
Yeah.
But
we need 12 women that will cooperate. I need 11 more goddesses to join in this sacred ritual. We need 12 men. Let's get our volunteers.
Michael's heading to the airport.
Yeah.
But my question was, Janet, is August the 12th the end of the dog days? Do you know the dog days?
What do you mean by dog days?
Dog
days
it was like a certain period.
Hot
the
days.
dog days in baseball are just a very tough period to work through the heat of the summer, but the dog days originally refer to the time when humans can communicate with their forefathers in the Sirius star system. It starts around middle of July, and it goes to around August the 12th.
That's
it's a very odd...
Yeah.
The Philip experiment occurred then, and that this is the culmination of that certain period.
Yeah, when I met the Anunnaki, they told me that their whole way of how they govern themselves and their kingship list and how they relate to mankind was all based on the precessional cycle. And they said that us entering the age of Aquarius would make a difference on every front, which they said was February 14th, 2009, by the way, so we're already into it.
It's August 12th, dog days. And you're right.
Still breaking up.
Oh, sorry, Tosh. August 12th. It says, I looked it up, the dog days end August 12th, just like you said.
They end August the 12th.
Yeah. According to this website, I haven't stared at it, but I just looked real quick. I said, what's the end of the dog day? And it said August 12th. So.
Wow.
So it's the best of times, it's the worst of times, and it's our time, so dig it.
Right. All right, we're almost out of time. Speaking of time, let's kind of begin to wrap up our conversation. And, okay, Glenn, you were talking about the power of Amrita from your research, the sacred anointing oils and all that stuff, correlation with this Amrita orgasm.
It's a dietary principle that when the body is fed properly, which the Garden of Eden said accurately was from the fruits of the trees and not from the animals, the body goes into a dry packed state where the cells touch each other on all six sides with a little bit of water between, and really gets a very powerful signal throughout the whole body. When sunlight comes through the pineal or through the hypothalamus into the body and out the hands and feet, you've really got it going on. But when the woman is in the sexually heightened arousal, she can produce a certain substance from her yoni. She can produce what's called an Ormus molecule. It's a monoatomic atom, and it can change DNA, it can raise intelligence, and it has quantum properties. Orme meaning orbitally rearranged molecular elements. And so it's the only source that I've seen in the world. It's out of the female yoni that can produce this. First of all, it's very sweet, and this next emanation is exactly like seawater.
Right.
And that will send the couple. She can then take her partner up through wherever they want to go, as Michael has suggested. And it's really an electromagnetic field reaction.
And that's what the Anunnaki did. They practiced Tantra, and they brought forth these orgasms and this
those are the goddesses who were in the temples. When you went to the high temples of Athens or Arcadia, wherever they were, these goddesses were taught and trained in this field. A very ancient principle.
And they were training in Mera how to be in this state. When Anu came down, they loved her.
That's the 2840 BCE.
In 2840 BCE. 30. All right. Well, let's all wrap up what we're going to say. We're running out of time here. Sasha, any final words?
Well, yeah, it's so apparent that the intelligences that care about us and our survival are cheering for us to really be the leading edge of humanity and to really realize we are offering empathy for all life in a way that they can learn from us as close as we can learn from them. We're not secondary savages. We are evolved beings. That's what I think.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So who wants to go next? Anything else? We have a little bit of time, but I wanted to make sure we get everything on the table that we need to say. Glenn, did you report everything about your studies this summer and what you uncovered? Anything that you want to tell our listeners?
Only that the work that I'm doing over the last 17 years is being confirmed here in Toronto by people that I'm meeting here. The one medium who I met with for 10 hours one day, who woke up in 2011 with his gifts to go up into the Akashic record. And what she had said to me when I first met her, and I was there for about the first 4 minutes when she was blasting at me in our first meeting, and I said to her, "You're from the Council of 12." And she said, "Yes." She said, "I'm here to spank the Anunnaki for what they did, for making the humans into a slave race and have them taken through this long, torturous history in whatever end of the universe we're in. We're kind of like a little backwater of the universe here. And she's here to turn the whole thing over. And so it's going to be a very fascinating next 12 months working here in Toronto.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes, indeed.
What's going on? Where do you go next? What's the Start Knowledge Conference?
Well, it's kind of strange because, as I said, I'm being guided to show the work that I've uncovered regarding my own bloodline and what it means for me to find out, first of all, through the History Channel about my blood, and then to meet the Anunnaki and then tell me of the bloodline, and then to find out that I am of North American Native Indian heritage. It's all coming together, and it's still in the process of coming together to the point that I'm still going to go to the museum with it because I'm leaving in 1 week to go to the Star Knowledge Conference. So it's all coming together right now, and I don't even know how I'm going to present it, to be honest with you. I'm trying to figure out how to put it all together, but...
and then your father is a famous, found out your father, who you've never known, is a famous musician, and here you are, this world-class musician.
Yeah, I never, that was another thing that was revealed through the History Channel, and they wanted me to contact my biological parents for the first time. And I think you guys know. I just wrote a letter to them, and
who he is?
Oh, it's Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton. Uh-huh.
So we'll see. I know it sounds like some people are like, dude, that just is crazy, but it is what I found out. But the truth of the matter is, my parents that raised me, still to this day, I love them, and we're very, very close. And so I'm not in, like, if he wants to contact me, I'd love to jam some guitar with him, but I already have two parents. But I have met my biological mother now and my two sisters, and it's such a joy because I was raised an only child. So all of a sudden to meet my sister, who has my exact same sense of humor and sarcasm, I guess there is something in the genetic makeup. But it's been a blessing to meet them. So I mean, it would be a blessing to meet Eric as well. But whatever the universe has in store for me, I'm fine with it.
Or you put it out there, Michael. It seems to me you're a pretty powerful prayer person.
I've learned to pray. They say never pray for patience. And I think there's a lot of spiritual wisdom in that. You got to learn to pray for what you're grateful for. Find something in your life right now that you're grateful for. It could be your health. It could be you just ate a great meal, and then really focus on what you're grateful for, because if thoughts create reality, when you're putting out gratitude, then things will come to you that make you have more gratitude, right? Any other prayer is a trip back into the illusion, into the Maya.
Law of attraction at all times. Well, certainly you get any more revelations, or you get contact, or any information, if you do contact me, we can do shows anytime. I'd like to hear back from the happens to the Star Knowledge Conference. Keep in touch with me, with your research. That's why I have these entities. I have Aquarian Radio. We're going to do October 5th, we're going to do a Revolution Radio, and the audience is really large on that show. I want to do another roundtable, but it's a Sunday, and so you can't really join us back. But we've got several different Anunnaki, ancient aliens researchers that like to join us in these roundtables. But if you ever can make it on a Sunday, Michael, let us know, because that's our bigger audience. But this Korean radio, Sunday. In October will be good. We're doing it on the 5th, so just keep that in mind. And anything else, Doc?
Oh, just if you're running or biking or walking along, a really good meditation is. Good show. Thanks. Good show. Thanks.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I learned a lot, and the synchronicities were just astounding.
Well,
great meeting you, Michael.
I don't watch television. I don't listen to negative. I don't listen to music that much. I think it's because it's in the wrong, mega or something from what my Anunnaki roots are, and so I just I keep the negative out of my life and just focus on positive affirmations to where we can go and put together these pieces of the puzzle and being proactive rather than victim. So that's what I do personally. I recommend that instead of just wallowing, just to do something. Although the other thing you were saying earlier, sometimes you just don't think of it.
Don't do something, sit there.
Don't do something, sit there. All right. Well, I think we just lost somebody. So thank you so much for joining us. This is an episode of Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. I am your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with co-host Dr. Sasha Lessin, and thank you very much, Glenn and Michael, for joining us. And much love and blessings and aloha from us here in Mound.